Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Thomas and I own a business called Stories from the Hearth where I take life histories and make them into books. I'm going to share a few examples so that you can get an idea of what it is I do and what I can do for you. Here is one that is paperback. This particular person wanted to have two different voices in their it's a memoir. In their memoir. So, as you can see here, this is their voice, and then we boxed the other voice. What was particularly cool was that that voice was by someone who had already passed away. It was this man's mother. So he's got his story, and the other is the life history that she had written before. He gave that to me, and I was able to weave it in with his story so that the timelines were parallel, whenever it was parallel, or the topics were the same. And it was like they were both able to be commenting on the same events, even though she wasn't around. I did some light editing on what she did, and with his, because he's here, we were able to work together to get it much more edited, but I wanted to preserve hers just the way she'd written it. This is another one I did. Obviously, it's a bunch bigger, and this one is hardbound. In this book, we got to include pictures. One positive of having it this big is that you can have bigger pictures. So here we've got an entire poster. This client had already written up an entire manuscript and just wanted me to edit it for them. So there was no interviewing done. It was just, here's a manuscript, please edit it and put it into book form. And this is what it turned into. This is a couple. So she got the first half of the book and he got the second half of the book, and this is actually her handwriting, the way that she would sign letters. Let's see here, got to put pictures in this one too. So no matter the size of the book, we can put in pictures, and putting them in color doesn't add extra cost, by the way, to printing. That's an outdated assumption now. And I interviewed them for this entire book because neither of them is a writer. She was going blind and he had an accident anyway, so his mind wasn't totally there anymore, but was enough there to say, these are some of my memories that I want preserved. I interviewed them while they were in the same room together, and it was just whatever stories came to mind, and then I put them in order and I put them together into a manuscript in their own voice. With that in mind, let me read a little bit of it to you so you can have an idea of what it would sound like. The end result of what I do sounds like the person talking. It's not going to sound like I wrote it because I didn't write it. It's in your words. Let's see. Dale was the only one who was drafted in World War II. Bill was drafted during the Korean War, but Dad wasn't on the draft board then. They were not a crooked draft board. They really were not. But there were some people who, when their sons were drafted and others were not, well, like the Laird family. There were people who said, why haven't they drafted the Lairds? The Lairds were over age. They just acted young. Nick Laird was young enough to be drafted, but he was excused by the Boise draft board. They had levels that you could appeal to, and so he appealed. Dale did not appeal. It was a war, and it was his turn to go. It keeps going. So it's much more conversational, and the idea is that I'm trying to preserve the storyteller's voice just as much as I am preserving the stories. For me, it matters when I open up a book of my grandma's stories that I can hear my grandma talking. The same turns of phrase, the same joke, the same punchline at the right spot. And a lot of the time, what happens with my clients is they find a good amount of catharsis while they're working on these stories because they're telling the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, hopefully. And they're saying, this was my life, and try to come to grips with it. And most of them, like I would say all of them, at the end say, wow, I didn't realize my life was so interesting or so beautiful. It's something I love about my job is bringing all of those stories from all over the place and putting it together into a single story and saying, here, this was your life. And they get to read it and say, wow. And then they also get to express love to their families. And in that way, it's bringing families together, which is something else that I absolutely love. So if you have any questions, let me know. My email is storiesfromthehearth@gmail.com. And I would love to hear from you.